So looping over and creating a bunch of numbers to print out is not all that useful, but we do use loops all the time when we're interacting with arrays. Now there's more than one way of doing this, and we'll see some others that are a little bit nicer later on, in just a few videos actually. But one option to loop over an array, we also call it iterating over an array, doing something with or for each element in an array, is to use a for loop, and to create a number, usually called I, that we'll use to refer to an element's index in the array. So indices start at 0, and then they go up to the end, the length minus 1, right? So there's 3 elements here. The highest index is 2. So we could loop from 0 to 1 to 2, and then use that index to access the element in the array. And that's exactly what I'm doing here. I starts at 0, while I is less than animals.length, whatever that is. That could be 3, it could be 100, I++, and then I'm printing out I just so you can see it, and animals square brackets I. So animals of 0, lions. Animals of 1, tigers. Animals of 2, bears. Oh my. So this is a pretty common template. Let I equal 0, I less than some array.length, I++, in a for loop at least. That will iterate over every index, right? It doesn't give us the element itself. We have to plug that I, the number, into the array. So here's an example with a much larger array. I found a list, an alphabetical list of some popular animals, although some of them are kind of obscure. It's unclear why we have just lion, generic lion, and llama, right? We don't have like specific subspecies of lions. And then we end up with northern right whale, or Przewalski's wild horse. I mean, some of these are pretty specific. Anyway, lots of animals, right? I don't know how many are in here. So I'm not going to be able to hard code a loop, a for loop, that runs 20 times or 1,000 times. I'm not going to be able to determine, just by looking at this, how many elements I need to iterate over. So if I want to print out each animal in here, I need to do for something. So for let I, we'll start with index of 0. And then I'm going to go while I is less than, and my array is called animals. There it is. While I is less than animals dot length. So, I mean, I could also do less than or equal to animals dot length minus 1. That's our greatest index, but this is shorter here. So whatever that length is, let's say there's 500, probably 250, 300 elements in this array. The highest index, if there's 300 elements, the highest index is 299. So we want to stay less than the length, not equal to. Otherwise, we'll get an undefined at the end. And then we add one to I each time. And then here, why don't we just console.log I, and then, well, let's just do I first and see what we get. Okay, so 312. It wasn't that far off. So the highest index is 312. The lowest is 0, of course. And now if I want to print out the animal itself, animals square bracket I. Just like I myself would do animals of 0 to get the first one, and animals of 312 to get the last one. Zorilla. What is a zorilla? Interesting. African weasel. It looks like a skunk in my backyard. Oh, so cute. All right, so that's a zorilla. Anyway, let's run this now, where I'm using that index, a new index each time through the loop, to access animals at that index. Refresh the page, and here we are. So I'm printing out the index just so you can see it. 0 is aardvark. 1 is aardwolf. 2 is African elephant. 3, African tree pangolin. Oh, pangolins. If you ever want to just really be deeply disturbed and saddened by the state of the world, just look at photos of pangolins being illegally trafficked. It's just sad. There's little cute armored animals stuffed into a box. Anyway, on a lighter note here, I don't have a lighter note, do I? It's very sad. Okay, on a coding note, let's go in reverse. I'm iterating from the beginning to the end of the array. Let's go the other direction. So stop and think about this on your own if you would like. What do we need to do? Well, we need to start with the highest index. So what is the highest index? I equals animals.length. That's not quite it. Animals.length is going to be, 313. If the highest index is 312, it's one more. So we want this. Animals.length minus 1. Then I want to keep going while something, we'll come back to that, and I want to subtract 1 from I each time. So we start with 312 as our I, and then 311, 310, and we want to keep going while I is greater than or equal to 0. Or just greater than -1, right? We want to have 0 be one of the indices that we actually use because there's an index of 0. That's the first element. I minus minus, let's do a console.log animals of I. So don't forget, you've got to access the array with I. I is just a number. We're generating a bunch of numbers, the indices, but we have to plug them into the array. Okay, so let's see what we end up with here. Looks good. Let's make sure we start with Zorilla all the way down to aardvark. And there we go. So super common to iterate over arrays. And this used to be one of the more common ways of doing things. But actually, in the last couple of years, there's an even easier way of iterating over arrays. We will see it shortly. But you should still know how to do this. It's just a for loop. We're just plugging our I, or whatever we name this, into an array. All right, next up, we've got to talk about nested loops.